Once we understand the competitive environment, it's time to shift gears and think about what our company is doing in the context of the world that we live in. By doing this, we'll be able to understand what the strengths and weaknesses of our organization are, as well as what the opportunities for growth and the potential threats that might deter that growth are. And we do that with a framework that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which is the SWOT analysis, or SWOT for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, some of you may think that this is a very simplistic framework, and to be clear, it is very simple, but some of the power comes from its simplicity. It allows us to get a quick and easy grasp of what our situation is in this moment. And only when we can do that can we then move to the next steps of actually designing objectives to move forward. Now, since I know that many of you are already very familiar with the SWOT analysis, I'm not going to spend too much time detailing it. Instead, what I'll do is focus on a single example. We're going to do a very quick and dirty SWOT analysis of the Tepper School of Business. So going through these one at a time, we can see that some of the strengths of the school are it's very highly ranked. If you look at the different rankings like US News and World Report or the Financial Times, Tepper has a very strong reputation, and that absolutely is a strength of the school. We also have one of the strongest offerings for an online education, like the one that you're doing right now. We're ranked very highly, specifically in the online MBA marketplace, and that also is something that we have a strength in and could potentially leverage to grow and become even stronger than we are today. On the other hand, in terms of weaknesses, we are located in Pittsburgh. Now, as much as many of us love Pittsburgh, and I'm certainly one of those as well, it's definitely a weakness. Imagine if we were located in New York or San Francisco or in Chicago or in another major marketplace where the potential for students is much higher than it is for Pittsburgh. Especially for the full-time MBA program, attracting individuals to move here for a couple of years is no small feat. And so that is a weakness that we have, and it just is. It's something we have to live with. We also have a relatively narrow branding and positioning. Tepper is known as the technology or the innovation school, which sounds great, but realize that not everybody wants an MBA in the technology space or in more of a quantitative discipline. Some people want a more leadership or management-oriented education, or one that focuses, say, specifically on marketing initiatives. And that's fine too, but we have to appreciate that even though we do have this strength of being positioned as a quantitative school in a technology space, that is also a weakness of ours. Now, those two, the strengths and the weaknesses, really are describing the current situation of who we are. But with those strengths and weaknesses, there typically are parallel opportunities and threats. So, for example, an obvious opportunity coming out of COVID is that there is a growing demand for an online education. We saw that very explicitly during COVID when the number of students that were enrolled in this online hybrid MBA program nearly doubled from what we had previously. And now that appetite is there, people are used to this delivery format, and the question is, can we capitalize on that strength that we have to really take advantage of this opportunity? It's also the case that we're in a slightly slowing economy, and what we know is that education is counter-cyclical with the economy. When the economy is doing really well, people are reluctant to give up their high salaries and take a break for a couple of years to get a degree. On the other hand, when the economy is slowing and salaries are stagnating, you see that people are willing to take a break to advance their careers through additional education like an MBA program. So even though for many people a slowing economy is a problem, for higher education it often is an opportunity. On the flip, there are macro trends that suggest threats to the business model of this particular business school. One is something that affects actually every business school, and that is the fact that MBAs as a degree are on the decline. There are fewer and fewer individuals seeking an MBA as compared to, say, 10 or 15 years ago, and that's a real threat for us. If that trend continues, then the applicant pool that Tepper is facing will certainly shrink. There's also this possibility of truly alternative educational formats. Think about MOOCs, or massively open online courses. Some people will forego higher education entirely in the hopes of getting that same type of educational experience in a very different space. Now, we can debate whether the quality of that education is of high or low quality, but it is certainly a threat. To the extent that those formats are growing, there's a real concern that they're going to impact the bottom line of the Tepper Business School. Now, this, of course, is a very quick and simple analysis. We can spend a lot more time fleshing out each one of these things and adding to each of these four categories. But it is a very simple way for us to say, here's what's going on, for example, at the Tepper School right now, and here's where we can go forward. And often those opportunities and threats are what dictate the marketing strategy that we tend to follow next. Returning to the 3 C's for a second, we've briefly covered the bottom half, which is the company and the competitors, but we still haven't talked about the customers. We'll do that actually next week when we talk about segmentation strategies, and the following week when we talk about specific ways in which we can understand consumers and actually sell product to them in an effective way. So that actually wraps up what I wanted to say about this particular assessment of the environment that we're in. And in the next video, I'll set up the assignment that you have due for our upcoming live session.